Hello everyone, my name is as you all know, Sashibo. In today's class, we'll be observing important questions you're going to see in your exam this year. So whether you are writing NECO, you are writing WAEC or JAM, you need these questions for your exam sake. But this question is from a particular topic in government, and that topic is OAU. Now, if you can check this place very well, there are about three questions here, and this question is from, like I said, this topic called the OAU. But I'm not going to be answering these questions for you. Okay, what I will do is I will only show you the question. As you can see, I will explain how OAU was formed, how it started from pan-Africanism till when it was changed to AU, which is the African Union. So from the explanation you comprehend, you will answer these different questions in the comment section. Not just that, I will also encourage you to subscribe to this channel so that you can see more questions like these you will see in your exam and detailed explanation to topics in government. And I will encourage you to share this video among your friends or to your enemies per se if you can, so that they can learn from it and also for them to have a great academic success as far as this year exam is concerned. So what does the question say? Let's observe the first one. The first one says that when was OAU formed? OAU is the Organization of African Unity. Okay, option A says May 28, 1960. Option B says May 25th, 1963. Option C says May 30, 1962. While option D, May 16, 1953. So the question is, you need to ask yourself, which of these options was OAU formed? That is for question 1. So the question 2 says, OAU was formed by how many signatory governments? So how many signatory governments involved into the formation of OAU? Option A says 12 countries. Option B says 40 countries. Option C says 32 signatory government or countries. Option D says 10 countries or signatory governments. Why the number 2 question, which is highly important because of this year exam this year, WAEC, NECO or JAM as the case may be. This 3 question says all Africa People Conference were held was in dash. All Africa People Conference was in dash. It was in the year A 1950, B 1958, C 1940, D 1919. So we're going to be answering these questions from the discussion I will be providing. Let's watch out for the discussion. Great elite, we're back again. So I will be observing and explaining to you in detail the OAU, which is Organization of African Unity. Okay, but you cannot know OAU if you don't know Pan-Africanism, because based on the chain of event, Pan-Africanism existed before Organization of African Unity. So let's explain. Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism involves group of persons that you can call Pan-Africanist. Okay? Now, what is Pan-Africanism? It's an idea that was formed by Africans in diaspora, outside Africa. And there are 2 reasons for it. The 2 reasons for this Pan-Africanism is 1, to bring independence or decolonization to Africa. And not just decolonization, we can still perhaps call it the struggle for independence or nationalism to Africa. But not just that, the another thing for this idea called Pan-Africanism is African unity. Okay, but it's highly important that the Pan-Africanism, because of your exam, started in the 18th century. In the 18th century, it involved 2 main Pan-Africanists, Martin Delany and Edward Blading. Please, I want you to know that Martin Delany said, in quotes, that The black people need to create their own nation. While Edward Bladen said, in quotes, the black people need to go back to their homeland. You just need to know these two statements because of your exam. But beside this period, the Pan-Africanists that existed in the 19th century, it's highly important for you to know it because of your exam. In the 19th century, there were also other Pan-Africanists. But the main Pan-Africanist you need to remember is a guy called W.E.B. Dubious. W.E.B. Dubious. So W.E.B. Dubious was a great Pan-Africanist in the 19th century, not just W.E.B. Dubious. We also have someone else called the Marcus Garvey. The Marcus Garvey. But what do you need to remember for this year exam? They will ask you, this question will be asked oftentimes in JAM, you know what I mean? They will ask you, who initiated the Universal Negro Movement? Universal Negro Movement. You look for Dubious. W-E-B, Dubious. This is the spelling of Negro. Okay? So Universal Negro Movement was by W.E.B. Dubious. But Marcus Garvey was assisting W.E.B. Dubious. So Marcus Garvey actually may also create an important thing which you need to remember for your exam sake. So Marcus Garvey did not initiate Universal Negro Movement though, but he initiated Universal Negro Movement Association. So when they ask you who formed Universal Negro Movement Association, it's Marcus Garvey, but Universal Negro Movement is Dubious. You need to know this for your exam. But beside this, we also have other Pan-Africanists. But specifically because of your exam, this was around the 1920s to the 1940s. There was one great Pan-Africanist. They call this guy George Padmon. So George Padmon is the name of this great Pan-Africanist. Let me show you the spelling. George Padmon. So this is George Padmon's spelling. So you will see this in your exam. But I love George Padmon so much. There is something you need to focus on for your exam sake as you got George Padmon. This George Padmon added some African leaders to this movement called the Pan-Africanism. So one of the African leaders he added was a guy called the Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was the first black president of a country called Ghana. But don't stress yourself because of your exam. Remember a name called Kwame. Okay, but beside that, this George Padmon also used the first black president of Senegal. They call this guy Sender Leopold Senghor. But you don't need to stress yourself because of your exam. Remember a name called Senghor. They might ask who was the first black president of Senegal. You would look for a name that carries Seng. Okay, first black president of Senegal is Senghor. Alright, so you also make use of the first black president of Kenya. The name of that guy is Jomo Kenyatta. But you don't need to stress yourself. You just need to remember a name called Kenyatta. Was the first black president of Kenya. So he also makes use of other persons. Well, the ambition of Pan-Africanism, like I said, was for fight for independence and not just that for unity in Africa. One of the dreams of Pan-Africanism we realized after a lot of conferences. The first conference they had was in London in 1900. They had a Paris conference in 1919. They had another conference in a place called Brussels in Belgium in 1921. They had a conference in Lisbon, which is in Portugal, in 1923. They also had a conference in New York, which is in USA in 1927, but the last conference they held as regard Pan-Africanism was in 1945, Manchester. But in the long run, these Pan-Africanists, did they achieve anything? Yes, they did. The first country to gain independence from the European countries is Ghana, then known as Gold Coast. So Ghana gained independence Ghana gained independence March 6, 1957. So when Ghana attained one of these dreams of pan-Africanism, which is independence, in the long run something occurred. In the year 1958, they had a conference called All Africa People's Conference. I think this were also in that question I dropped, one of the three questions. So the All Africa People Conference were held in the year 1958. So it encompasses a lot of African countries. There they discuss how they will increase the ambition of development, not just that, but unity most especially, and for to assist a lot of countries to gain independence in Africa per se. But in the long run, to attain this, some countries came up with different ideas. They involved into what we call building of blocks. But there were two main blocks you need to remember for your exam. There were two main blocks that were built you need to remember for your exam. The first block is the Casablanca block. The Casablanca. So Casablanca is a block you need to remember for your exam. Casablanca block was by Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. So they will ask you the main country in Casablanca block. The option you look for in your exam is Ghana. But don't not judge that. We also have other blocks too. We have Brazzaville, but that is not really necessary because of this exam. But the other one you need to know is the Monrovia block. The Monrovia block was actually headed by Nigeria. There were other countries in Monrovia block. But what are the questions you will see in your exam over time? Besides the three questions I mentioned before, they will ask you, what country spearheaded the Casablanca bloc? Ghana. What country spearheaded the Monrovia bloc? Nigeria. Casablanca believed radical process, while Monrovia believed peaceful negotiation. But in the long run, after this bloc, all of them now say, okay, let's come together. Most especially about three countries that involve Ghana. There is another country called Ethiopia. There is another country called Egypt. So these countries called Ghana, Ethiopia, and Egypt decided to organize other countries in Africa to join them to hold what we call a conference, not just a conference, I call it a crucial meeting. That meeting is what masterminded the formation of OAU, Organization of African Unity. But who were these persons from these different countries? You need it for your exam. From Ghana, it was Kwame Nkrumah, but remember a name called Kwame. But from Ethiopia, it was a guy called Emperor Haile Selassie. But remember a name called Haile. Okay? So Emperor Haile was that guy from Ethiopia that was part of the conference that led to the formation of OAU. And beside that, the guy from Egypt was Gamal Abdel Nasser. But you don't need to stress yourself. You need to remember a name called Gamal. Gamal was the guy from Egypt that was also part of the conference that led to the formation of OAU. But I want you to remember, OAU was signed by 32 countries. This is part of the first question I dropped before. So it was 32 countries that signed the OAU. But when was it signed and formed? OAU was formed officially May 25th in the year 1963. So we have answered the theory questions already. I will bring the question back again so that you can answer it on the comment section. But don't forget, OAU, when was it formed? May 25th, 1963. By how many countries signing it? 32 countries. But how many countries were in forefront of this formation? How many countries organized these 32 countries? One of them is Ghana. The guy from Ghana, Kwame. The other person is Ethiopia. The other country is Ethiopia. The guy from Ethiopia, Harlan. And the other country is Egypt. The guy from Egypt, Gamma. This is how OAU was formed. But don't forget, OAU focused on the same ambition of Pan-Africanism. The OAU was dominated by Africans and it focused on bringing unity to Africa, not just that, helping African countries to fight for independence. The next thing we'll talk about will be the organs of OAU.